This is a game of Soviet Dawn, the Russian Civil War, 1918-1921, where we take command of the Bolshevik regime and we are defending the revolution from its enemies from within and abroad. And at the beginning of the game, we have the Germans that start in Riga. To the south, we have the Southern White Army commanded by General Anton Denikin in Crimea. To the east is the White Eastern Army under the command of Admiral Alexander Kolchak. There are various inactive armies that will enter the game at some point in time. We have the Poles, we have also the Finns, and the Allies, and also in the Baltic track there will be Udenich's army, White Army, coming in at the Baltic track. Now there are 3 decks of cards. We have here the gray deck, and at some point in time the cards will call for the black deck to be mixed in with remaining gray cards, and then the orange deck. And we have to prevent Moscow from falling to either any of these armies before the decks are depleted. In addition, we have to prevent a political defeat. If the political marker that starts in 1 goes to 0, it's a collapse of the revolution, we lose. Now, if it moves to its number 9 box, there is a political victory irrespective of the situation in the map. We have some resources that we use in addition to the cards that gives us a certain number of actions. We have these resources. Each of these chits, reserve offensives, give us an attack against any army, but they are expended once used. And these chits allow us to roll once either on the political level track to try to increase the level there, or on the Red Army reorganization table. We can use action points to roll here a die, but we need to roll a 6 and then another die to see what bonus we receive. And in addition to that, there is the political dissent table, which will be called for by the cards. Here we can use actions to as die roll modifiers, and we can get results as bad as to lose 1 political level, in which case the marker will go to the left 1 box, or we can gain 2 political levels. So that's in a nutshell basically the game. So let's start with the first turn. Okay, so we flip the first card, and it reads, Generals form volunteer army. We have advances by Finland and the Southern Army. Finland is not activated, so it's only the Southern White Army. So we advance Denikin's army here to Kharkov. It's number 3 spot. We have 3 actions without any restrictions. If you see this die, we'll be using it to record the number of actions we have. So we have 3 actions. We can use them to attack armies and push them back, or roll on the political level track to try to increase it, or roll here on the reorganization table. Okay, this army is not very impressive, so we want to avoid a political defeat. So we're going to roll on the political level track, and we need, in order to move that marker, it has to be the roll higher than 3. So we roll a die, and the result is 3, so that fails. We have 2 actions left. We'll roll again on the political track. Roll a 4. Now it goes up by 1 point to number 2. We have 1 action left. We'll use it to try to push back the Southern Whites. So we need 4 or more. Roll a 6, so they move back to their starting position here in the Crimea. And that's the end of the first turn. Now we go to the next turn, and we see here the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk sign. Okay, this is a very important card here. Here we can choose whether we're going to use the effects of that card or the effects of this card that is printed on the map. This represents the Russians staying in the war on the side of the Allies, and therefore Germany remains in the game. So this has the benefit of Germany being inactive, but has the downside of having the Allies activated. See, in this one, the Allies remain inactive. The Germans are really a formidable foe at the beginning of the game, so if I can get rid of a formidable foe, I think I'm going to use this card. So what we'll do now is advance the active armies, which is the Southern and the Baltic armies. The Southern army advances in Finland, but Finland is not active, so it is Denikin's army that advances. And the Baltic army actually retreats, so they can't retreat further than their starting position. Now we have two actions, and we're going to use the first action to try to, let's roll on the political track here. We need higher than 3. Roll a 2, that fails. Now we have one action left. Let's try to push the Southern White Army back. Roll 1 die, and it is a 1, so that fails. And that's the end of the turn. Now we add the darkness cards, which are the black cards here. Those will be added to the deck. And the Allied track is activated. So now we flip the marker here, and the Allies are activated. Germany now goes to the inactive side. So the Germans weren't a bother in this game at all. And now we will mix the black deck with these cards here, and we will be right back. Okay, we just mixed the cards, so we now go to the next event here. And it reads, Revolt of Less Socialist Revolutionaries. Advances by the Baltic and the Eastern Army with 2 actions for us. So the Baltic is out of the game, so that doesn't apply, but the Eastern Army advances to Omsk. Now, this Eastern Army has a mission to rescue the Tsar, and there's an action card, an event card that will call for a check, and if this army is in either of these 3 spaces, the Tsar is rescued, and we suffer a -1 penalty to all our attacks against enemy armies throughout the rest of the game. So we have to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, now we have 2 actions. So I'm going to try to push Kolchak's army back. So we roll once, and so 1, so that fails. And the next action, let's roll against Kolchak again. So here we go. And this time another 1, so that fails. So, boy, we're getting a festival of 1s here. Now there is the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. If it was accepted, which is the case, we roll for political dissent. And that's what's next now. So we roll on the political dissent table with no modification. Roll a die, and the die is a 2. We lose 1 political level, so now it's dangerously low, level 1. If we lose 1 more, we lose the game with a political defeat. So now comes the next card. U.S. launches Polar Bear expedition, advances by the Eastern Army. So Kolchak now moves to Ekaterinburg. 2 actions. And no offensives allowed versus Finland this turn. The Allied track is activated. That's already happened. Okay, so we have 2 actions coming up. Let's see here. We have a dilemma here because this marker is very low here. Let's try to increase our political level so that doesn't go down any further. Roll a die. It's a 6, so it goes up to 2. We have 1 action left, and let's try to push the Eastern Army back before we get that Tsar or his rescued card. So we roll against Eastern Army, and the roll is a 4, so we push him back to number 4 spot, Omsk. That's the end of the turn. We go now to the next card, and it reads, White Guard takes Ice March to Cuban and advances again by the Eastern Army, and retreat by the Southern Army. So the Southern Army now moves back to its starting position in the Crimea. 2 actions without restriction. So the first action is going to be to try to push back this army here, Kolchak's army. So we roll a die, and it is a 4, so that army is pushed back to Omsk. So we have a little breather there. And the next action is going to be to roll on the political level track. So let's roll a die. We need higher than 3, and you see it here. Here in parentheses is the 3. So we have to roll higher than 3. And the roll is a 6, so it goes to number 3. That's the end of the turn. Next turn. Advances by the Eastern, Southern, and Finland's army. So the Eastern army moves back to Ekaterinburg. The Southern army now goes to its number 3 box here in Kharkov. And the Finns get out of the gate. Well, the Finns wait. The Finns are inactive, so they stay right where they are. We have 3 actions, and we have here Poland track activated. So we should have done that first. Doesn't matter. Poland is activated, so they come really early in this war. And sorry for the cold. We have 3 actions coming up. And let's see what the situation is. I'm worried about here. Kolchak. So I'm going to use an action to try to push Kolchak back. And the result is a 4. So Kolchak goes back to Omsk. We have 2 actions left. Okay, let's give it another shot here on the political track. So let's roll a die. This time it's a 3, it fails. Okay, 1 action left. 1 action left. And it is during these times where it's not critical that we may expend a die here to see if we get a bonus here in the red organization table, but I have to roll a 6. So let's give it a shot. We need a 6, and it is a 1. Wow, not even close. So that's the end of that turn. Now we go to the next turn. And it reads, Frederick Karl abdicates throne, advances by the Eastern and Southern armies because the Baltic is inactive. So the Eastern army now goes back to Ekaterinburg again. And now the Southern army goes to Saritsing, its number 2 spot. And we have 1 action without restrictions, but this is important. Withdraw. It says that the Finnish front can be removed from play this turn. To do that, we have to roll a die, or that's automatic if they're on their 4th box. Now, the rules state that if it is not active, that is ignored. So that will be ignored because they were never activated. So we ignore that. We only have 1 action coming up. And let's see, let's use that action to try to push Kolchak back. So we roll against Kolchak, and we got a 6, so Kolchak moves back to Omsk. And we go to the next turn. And it is Czech Legion revolts, advances by, we have this time Poland and the Eastern Army, which are active. So the Eastern Army now goes back to Ekaterinburg again, and Poland goes and advances to Lwów. We have 4 actions, and we have -1 die roll modifier versus the Eastern Army until the Czech Legion sails. That is until the Czech Legion is gone. Let me check that rule just a second. Okay, we're back here. That event means that the Czech Legion now is activated, and there is a marker for that. We have this marker for the Czech Legion, and this is placed here in this box, and what it means is that there is now a -1 die roll modifier versus the Eastern Army while it is in effect, while the Czech Legion is still there. That will change once the Czech Legion sails card is played. So for now, we have a -1 on that army. That army is critical in rescuing the Tsar. So we have 4 actions, and I think we're going to expend some actions to try to push back that army right now. So let's go 1 action against the Kolchak's army, attack. 2, that fails, so we have 3 actions left. Another shot at that army, here we go. 6 -1, 5. So we push Kolchak back to Omsk with the Czech Legion included. So that's good. We have 2 actions left. Let's try to increase our political level there. So roll a die. and the result is a 4, so it's higher than 3. Now we move to our 4 box, and in our 4 box, we have to roll 4 or higher in order to move that marker up. So that's the situation so far. We still have one action left. Let's see against who we will use that action. Let's see. Let's try it. Let's go after Denikin, which is in Saritsing, which is pretty close. So we have to roll higher than 3. And we rolled a 4, so Denikin now moves back to its number 3 spot, Kharkov. And that's the end of the turn. We go to our next card here. Red Terror advances by, well, Finland is inactive. One action without any restriction. So one action. We can use it against the Southern Whites. We have here this -1, but it would be nice to push Kolchak back. It wouldn't be nice also to win the game on the political track. So let's roll on the political track. We need 5 or 6. So we roll. 3. That failed. So that's the end of the action there. And we go to the next card now. And the next one is minorities form breakaway republics. Advances by the Allies and the Eastern Army, because Finland is not activated. So the Allies start moving. They move to Archangel. The Eastern Army now moves to Ekaterinburg. And we have 2 actions without restriction. So I'm going to try to push that Eastern Army. Those Allies are tough, so we've got to watch out for that. Let's go against that Eastern Army with that -1 die roll modifier. So it's going to be our first action. Roll the die, and it's a 5 -1, 4. So we push them back to Omsk. We have 1 action left. And do we go against the Allies or try another shot at the political track? I'm going to try to move the political track up. So here we go. And a 6. So now we're at number 5 in the political track. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 to go to win a political victory. And that's the end of the turn. Now the next card reads, Finnish leader Mannerheim emerges, and now we replace the Finnish front with Mannerheim, the unit retaining its active/inactive status. So we take this leader, which I cannot pronounce his name, and we substitute it with this counter, which is the one for Mannerheim. But this counter has the particularity, Mannerheim is a lot better. He's a 4, but he's still inactive. So if they are called to enter the game, then we'll have another headache to worry about, but not for now. So they start in their number 4 box there. And we have advances by Baltic Army and Finland, but Finland is still inactive. So the Baltics, our army is gone, the German army. So we have 2 actions. 2 actions. We have the Allies there in Archangel, which a little bit marching there. And this Russian army in Kharkov. First, I'm going to give it another shot on the political track here. So I need 5 or 6. Here we go. 3. Okay, I have 1 action left. So let's try to push the southern Russians back. Here we go. And it's a 2, so that fails. So that's the end of the turn. We go to our next turn. And it says, Don Cossacks attack. Is German aid involved? Advances by the Southern Whites and Poland. So now we have the Southern Whites going to Saritsing, and the Polish army, which is dangerous, going to Sitomir. And why is it dangerous? Because if it moves into Kiev, it has the same effect as an army going into Petrograd. We lose a political level. We have 3 actions, but -1 versus the Southern army and a +1 to reorganize. Okay, so this probably is worth 1 shot here. We have 3 actions. Let's give our first shot on the reorganization table. We have a +1, so a 5 will do. We roll, and it is a 6, so we do get a bonus here. Now, which one? We have to roll again to see which one it is. 3. So let's see. We get the armored train. This is really good because it gives us a +1 die roll modifier for 1 offensive per turn on any front. So we put the armored train now with our available resources. and we have that bonus. So that's going to help us to offset this the Czech Legion here. So now we have 2 actions left because we use one for the reorganization table. Let's take an action against Kolchak's whites down there, and it would be no modification because we're going to use our armored train. So we're going to flip it for this turn, and here we go, and we get a 5. So Kolchak goes back to its starting spot in Irkutsk there. So we don't have to worry about him for a while. 1 action left. Now the nearest army is this army, but this army is near this 1 box, so we'll have to use it against the Poles because they're very close. So let's go against the Poles, and we roll a 6, so the Poles go back to Lwów, and that's the end of the turn. Okay, we continue with the game. We forgot to move this marker to the treaty accepted because we knocked Germany out of the war by accepting the treaty, so that's just a reminder marker there. Okay, so we go to our next turn. We have our armored train back, and let's see what happens. Tukachevsky advances boldly, advances by the Southern Army because Finland is still inactive. So the Southern Army now is becoming a headache. It goes to its number 1 box in Orel, and we have 3 actions, +1 versus the Eastern or Polish Army, and another +1 to reorganize. Wow, that's very tempting, but right now we have to push this Southern Army back. So we're going to use our armored train again in this attack, and we roll a die against the Southern Whites, and it's a 1 + 1, 2. That fails. So we have to burn another action, and now we have to attack those Southern Whites again with no modification. And this time it is a 2, so that also fails. We have 1 action left. Oh, burning all our actions against these guys. That's not good. So we're going to attack again. We have no choice. This time another 1. So this is a complete fiasco this turn. Now we have to start burning these markers here. Reserve offensive. So we'll burn 1 by placing it in the pieces not in play box. That's the name of the box. And we roll a die. And the result is a 5 this time. So at last it goes back to Saritsyn. Do we want to push it back and burn another one? No. So that's the end of that turn. We go to the next turn, and it is extreme weather hampers operations. We have to roll a die, and depending on the result, we have the effects of which armies advance. So we roll a die, and it is a 6. So it is the Southern and Eastern armies that advance. So the Eastern Army goes to Omsk, and the Southern Army again to Orel, the number 1 box. And we have 2 actions regardless, but it says no offensives allowed versus Allied, Baltic, or Poland this turn. Okay, good, because we want to go against the Southern Russians. So we have 2 actions, and we have our armored train. So let's use our armored train in the first one, and we roll 1 + 1, 2. That fails. So we have to use now our second action, and with no modification against the Southern Russians, 2. Ooh. So now we have to keep on burning our reserve offensive. So we burn another offense, another of these chits, and we roll. This time we get a 5, so now they move back again to Saritsyn. And that's the end of the turn. Next card. German Baltic Division lands in Finland, advances by the Baltic. Baltic is out of the game. The Southern Russians, Finland, but Finland is not activated, so it's only the Southern Russians again to Orel. Now we have our train again, and armored train, and we have a total of 2 actions. So we're going to use the armored train for the first one. We get a +1 bonus. And the roll is a 2 + 1, 3. Fails. Next roll again against the Southern White Army. We get a 5. We push them back to Saritsyn. And that's the end of the turn. We go to the next card here. And it reads, no war, no peace proclaimed. Advances by, the active armies here are the Eastern and the Southern Army. So the Southern Army again. It's a real pain in the neck. And the Eastern Army now goes into Ekaterinburg, which is a dangerous spot. We have 3 actions with no restrictions. And we will use again our armored train against the Southern Whites. Here we go. Roll the 5 plus 1, 6. So in the first attack, for a change, they go back to Saritsyn. Now we still have 2 actions, and we want to push Kolchak back. But now we have that -1 because we already used our armored train to attack the Southern Whites. So let's go against Kolchak with a -1. 3 minus 1, 2. We have 1 more attack against Kolchak again. Either 5 or 6. 4. That fails. So that's the end of the turn. Hope the Tsar card doesn't come up now because we're going to be very... okay, good. Hungry Spring. Kulaks threatened. Advances by Poland and the Eastern Army. Now the Eastern Army gets even closer to Ufa. And Poland moves to Sitomir, adjacent to Kiev. 3 actions, but no offensives allowed against the Southern Whites. The Southern Whites are in Saritsyn, so they're not an immediate threat. But now we have armies closing in at 2 range. We have 3 armies at range 2, so this situation's getting worse. And we have our armored train. We have 3 actions. So the first action is going to be to go against the Eastern Whites here. And it'll be, we will use the train to cancel this -1. So we roll and see it is a 3. So that fails. So we have 2 actions left. 2 actions left. Let's have to go against the Poles here because we don't want them taking Kiev the next turn. So here we go. And roll a 2. That fails. 1 action left. So do we choose the Poles or the Eastern Whites? So the Poles will cause havoc here on the political track. So let's go against the Poles again. This time a 3, so that fails. That's the end of the turn, and things are not getting better here. So now we have our next card, and it reads, Japan seizes Siberia, occupies Vladivostok, and we have advances by Poland and the Allies. They advance at last. So the Allies now go to their number 2 spot, Lake Onega, and Poland now takes Kiev, and that means we lose a level on our political track. We have 2 actions with a +1 Darrow modifier versus the Eastern Army, and a +1 to reorganize, but we will automatically lose 1 political point, so that's not very encouraging here. But I think we have to protect our capital now and worry about the political points later. So it's 2 actions, +1 versus the Eastern Army, but we have the Poles here right next to Moscow, so we don't have a choice. We're going to use the armored train against the Poles. So here we go. We have a +1, and it is 4. So we move the Poles back to Sitomir. We have 1 action left. Against this army, it will be -1. So they're at range 2, 2, and 2. So, the Allies. The Allies move here. They're going to be very hard to dislodge. So let's take a shot at the Allies. Here we go. 3, that fails. So that's the end of the turn. Okay, next card. Magno leads, anarchists revolt, and we have to roll a die, and the Southern Army will either advance or retreat. So let's see, roll a die. 6, it will retreat, so that's good. So the Southern Army now goes to Kharkov, gives us a breather there. And we have 1 action. After that, we roll for political dissent, and if the Don card is not yet in play, we add this card to the Don card, the orange deck. So we have 1 action. We have our armored train ready again. Who do we want to push back? Let's push back the Poles before they move into Kiev again, we lose another point. So we roll against the Poles. It is 3 plus 1, 4 because of the armored train. So the Poles now go back to Lwów. That's good. And we now roll for political dissent. So we got to watch out here because we can lose political points. There you go. We lose a political point. So it goes down to level 3. And the Don card is not yet in play. The Don card is the orange one. So we add this card here to the orange pile when they are called to be added to the cards remaining in the deck. And that's the end of that turn. We go to the next turn. And we have Trotsky introduces political commissars, advances by the Allies. Now the situation's critical. They're in Vologda. They're number 1 spot. We have 3 actions, but the good news is +1 on all offensives, but we automatically lose a political point. So we have 3 actions. We have our armored train back, and we're going to use our armored train here against the Allies. So we roll a die. 4 plus 1, 5. So the armored train made the difference. The Allies go back to Lake Onega. And we have 2 actions left. So let's see. 2 actions left. We're going to lose a political point here. Anyway. So let's try to get that political point back. So we'll roll on the political level track. We need higher than 3, 4, yes. So now it moves to level 4. We have one more shot here, one more action. We can try to roll on the political level again, but we have armies closing in. Well, these are level 3, level 3. The Allies still are close, and they are tough, but I'd rather use the armored train against them next turn. So we're going to roll on the political track again. Let's live dangerous. So here we go. 6. So move to box 5. And now we implement this effect here. Automatically lose 1 political point, so it goes down now to level 4, and that's the end of the turn. We go to the next turn. And it reads, Jassy Conference reveals disunity. Retreat the Allies. Boy, that's a good break. So the Allies go back to Archangel. We have 1 action. Roll repeatedly on the political track with a +1 die roll modifier maximum until an unsuccessful die roll is made or victory is achieved. We have 1 action. But to win, we would have to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. This is very highly unlikely to do that. Even if we burn these political decree chits, which allow us to, for example, these chits allow us to roll in the political table. Do we want to burn them now and try to win the game politically? Do we want to do that? Well, we don't have to decide that right away. What we can do is use an action, and the action I want to use, since I have my armored train, is to push back the white army here. So it would be a roll with no modification, and it is a 1, so that fails. So the armored train goes back. Oh boy, they rescue the Tsar. We're going to be in real trouble. Okay. Now we roll repeatedly on the political track with a +1. Let's see what happens here. So we roll first. That's a 3 plus 1 is 4. So it does not increase, it fails, and it ends right there. So we don't use any more. I'm not going to use any of our political decrees. Next card, okay. German capitulation. The Great War ends. Advances by the Southern Army, but before that it says add Dawn cards. Replace Germany with Udenich. Activate the Baltic track, and the Allied track is activated. So let's pause to add the Dawn cards right now. Okay, so we just added the Dawn cards, and we replace Germany. We take this marker out, and we will bring Udenich's army here at Riga. So we have more White Russians now starting at Riga, although it's not as strong as the Germans. And the Allies are activated already. We have 2 actions and no offensives against the Baltic this turn. So 2 actions. 2 actions. We have the Allies at 4, White Russians at 3. Okay. Two actions. Let's go. We have to use that armored train. Let's try to push these Eastern Whites back. So it would be a roll with no modification. We roll, and it is a 4. So they go back to Ekaterinburg. And now we have one action left. And let's see. Do we roll on the political track? Still 5 boxes away from victory. That's far away. We don't have any major threats. So let's roll on the political track. Here we go. We need 5 or 6 to move to box 5. So we roll 2. That fails. Okay, that's the end of the turn. We go now to the next turn. And it says Kolchak undermines joint offensives. We have advances by the Baltic and the Allies. So the Allies now move to Lake Onega, their number 2 spot, and the Baltic Army moves to Estonia, their number 3. And we have 2 actions with a +1 versus the Baltic and Finland. Well, Finland is not in the game yet. And then if Baltic front occupies Petrograd, expel it in this turn or you lose. Well, the Baltic front will not get there in this turn. So what we do is we have 2 actions. And we have our armored train again. Who do we want to attack? We have a +1 versus Baltic and Finland. So I'll use the armored train to push the Eastern Whites back. So I have a +1, but it is cancelled because of the -1. So it's no modification, and we roll a 5. So the Kolchak's army goes back to Omsk. We have 1 die roll left, and we have a +1 versus the Baltic, so we might as well use it. Here we go. And it is a 5, so the Baltic army goes back to its starting point in Riga. And that's the end of the turn. Next card. Oh, we have an orange card. Polish-led Central European Federation advances by the Southern Army and retreat by the Baltic Army. Baltic, you can't retreat anymore. Advances by the Southern Army to Tsaritsyn. 2 actions with a +1 versus Poland. So we have 2 actions. Poland is not a threat. 2 actions. We're going to go... Believe it or not, we could get a shot here at the political track right now. 2 actions. Let's take a shot at the political track. We don't have anybody very near our capital, Moscow. So here we go. Political track. We need 5 or 6. 2. That fails. We have 1 shot. We'll use now the armored train against the Allies because they're a little close for comfort. So we have a +1, and the result is a 5 +1, 6. So they go back to Archangel, and we use our armored train. So we go to the next card now. We have Whites flee to fortified Crimean Peninsula. Advances by the Baltic and the Eastern armies. Now the Baltic army goes to Estonia, and the Eastern army goes to Ekaterinburg once again. 2 actions, and we have a -1 versus Poland and the Southern army, and the Southern front can be removed from play this turn. As per 10.1.3. So let me check that rule, and I'll be right back. Okay, the way this works is that after we take our actions, we are going to roll for withdrawal of the Southern front. In whatever box it occupies at that time, if we roll less than the number of the box, in the box, it is removed. So it is in our interest to try to push him back a little so we have a better chance at removing that army. So, okay, we already had the advances, so we have 2 actions, and I'm going to use an action to try to push the Southern army back, and I'm going to use my armored train. So I have a +1, and the die roll is a 6, so the Southern army now goes to its number 3 box. And we have 1 action left and a chance to knock them out. Let's see. Let's go for it. We have the other armies. The only one that bothers me a little bit is the Eastern army, but I'll have to take my chance. So we roll again to try to push back the Southern Whites with no modification. And this time it is a 1. So that's the end of our actions. Now we roll a die, and if we roll less than 3, they are out of the game. So let's see what happens. And of course we roll a 4, so they stay in the game. Next card. Denikin Unstoppable, Objective Moscow. We have advances / actions. We have Advanced Southern Army, 1 box. Okay, let's do that first. They go to Saritsyn, and then it says you may then take 1 action. If that action does not result in a successful offensive versus the Southern Army, repeat this procedure. So if they advance again, continue until you are victorious versus the Southern Army, or it advances to Moscow and you lose. So we need some average luck here. So we take an action. It's just 1 action here. Oh, no, we repeat that. But we can use for one of these attacks, our armored train. So here we go. And we rolled the 4 + 1, 5. So the offensive was successful with the armored train. So that ends this sequence here in this card. And we go to the next card. Czech Legion sales. Great. Ticket paid in gold. We have advances by the Allies. The Allies go to Lake Onega, their 2 spot. And Poland. Poland goes to Sitomir, right next to Kiev. But we have a retreat by the Eastern Army. So Kolchak, that comes in handy. And we remove the Czech Legion marker from play. So that's the end of that -1 penalty that we had. So that's good. And we have a total of 2 actions. 2 actions. So we have our armored train back. Oh, let's see, do we try to push this political marker? Oh, okay, the Poles are... Let's use our armored train against the Poles here. So we roll, and it is 2 + 1, 3. That fails, so that's that. And we have 1 more attack, and if the Poles move into Kiev, we lose another political level. So we go against the Poles, and this time we roll a 4. So the Poles now move back to Lwów. And now we go to the next card. And it reads, Anti-Semitic pogroms, advances by the Baltic, Polish, and Allies. So the Baltic moves to Pskov, the Poles again to Sitomir, and the Allies to their #1 box. So now we have a real threat there. 3 actions, but we have a +1 versus the Southern and Allies, and a +1 maximum on the political table roll this turn. I don't think we'll be rolling on the political level because we have the worry about the Allies moving here and losing Kiev and losing Petrograd. So if we're lucky, you can push all those 3 back. Now, we have a +1 versus the Southern and the Allies. So if I use my armored train, I can make it a +2 against the Allies. And I'm going to do that because I can't afford to lose the game. So I'm going to use it here. I get a +2 versus the Allies. So roll the die. And it is 3 + 2, just enough to push them back to Lake Onega. So now we have 2 actions. And we have to push back the Poles and the Baltic Army. So let me see. Let's go now against the Poles. Poles is a 1, so that fails. And let's go against the Baltic Army. And that is a 5, so they go back to Estonia. That's the end of the turn. We can probably use one of these offensives to move that Polish army back. But our political level is still far away from victory, so do we want to win politically and have a shot at this? I think, okay, let's use 1 to try to push the Poles back. Here we go. So it's a 5, so the Poles go back to Lwów. Okay. So no one is advancing in 20 of those cities that we lose points, we lose political points. So the next card. British soldiers repulsed mutiny and advances by the Southern Army and Poland because Finland is not active. So the Southern Army now goes to Orel, their number one spot, and there's a direct threat. And Poland again to Sitomir. And we have 2 actions, +1 versus the Allies, and possible withdrawal from by the Allies. That's very tempting, but we have the Southern Russians knocking on our door, and we don't have so many actions. We only have 2 actions. So the first thing we have to do is to try to push the Southern Russians back. So we're going to use our armored train here, and we get a +1, 2 + 1, 3. That fails. Now we don't have the armored train. 1 action, and we have the Southern Russians at our doorstep, so we have to attack them again. 3, that fails. Now we used up one of these offensives for the other turn, so we're going to have to burn one of these and attack again the Southern Russians. Come on. 3, this is bad. That fails, so we have to burn our last reserve offensive chit. Goes here, and we need to push that army back. So here we go. We roll. And this time we get a 4, so this time we push them back to Saritsyn, but we've burned all our reserve offensives. Luckily we still have the armored train. Now, okay, withdrawal. The Allied front can be removed if we roll less than 2. So we have to roll a 1 to remove the Allies. Let's see if that happens. Nope, 3, so that fails. So the Allies are still in the game. And we go to the next turn. Ukrainian directory struggles, advances by the Allies and Poland. So now the Allies go to 1, and Poland occupies Kiev, which causes a loss of 1 point here. We go to level 3. 2 actions +1 versus the Southern Army, which is in their 2 spot. So we have 2 actions, but this is pretty simple. Here we have to use our armored train against the Allies. So our first action is against them. We roll a 2 + 1, 3. That fails. That burns the train for this turn. We go to our second action against the Allies, and we don't have any reserve offensive. So here we go. Oh, 3. That fails. So that's the end of the turn. And now, if this card calls for the Allies to advance, we are toast. So let's see. Advances, it says Hoffman offensive launch, Baltic and Southern Army. So the Baltic Army advances to Pskov, and the Southern Army is now in the number 1 spot. We have 2 actions, no offensives allowed against the Baltic this turn. Okay, no problem. We have 2 threats here, the Southern Russians and the Allies. So, okay, you're going to use the armored train against the Allies. So here we go. 6 + 1. So we push the Allies back to Lake Onega. That gives us a breather. And now our second and last action of this turn has to be against the Southern Whites. We have no bonus, so here we go. And we rolled a 5, so that gives us a respite, and they are pulled back to Saritsyn, and that's the end of the turn. Okay, let's look at the situation here. We are about a little bit more than 2/3 of the deck gone. And we have armies at a range of 2. Actually, no, we have the Allies here and the Southern Russians here. But the most threatening army right now is the Polish army. And that means that if the Polish army is called to advance here, we lose the game. The Eastern Army is pretty far away here in Omsk. So draw the next card, and we're lucky. Naval showdown in the Baltic Sea. Advances by the Allies. The Baltic. Finland is not activated, so the now move to Vologda. The Baltic moves to Petrograd, and we lose another point in the political track. And we have 3 actions, and we roll for political dissent at the end. So that means a bad die roll will make us lose another point. So we have 3 actions, and our first action I think we should use the armored train against the allies, which are the toughest of the armies. So we're going to roll against the allies. I rolled a red die. What the hell? 2 + 1, 3. That fails. So that burns one action. We have 2 actions left. Here's the white die. Okay. I should be rolling the red die, though. Yeah, let's start rolling the red die. I have 2 actions left. Okay. We'll go against the allies again. Here we go. And this time we roll a 6, so the allies go back to Lake Onega. We have 1 action left. We have no reserve, offensive reserve, so we have to go against the Poles here. There's no other choice. So here we go, the Poles, and we roll a 5. That red die is pretty cool. So they go back to Sitomir. That's the end of our actions, but now we roll for political dissent. And we have no die roll modifiers because we used all our actions to push armies back. So here we go. 3, that's no effect, so that's better than losing a point. So that's the end of the turn. And we go to the next turn. Trotsky leads Reds, saves Petrograd, advances by the Southern Army. So now the Southern Army goes to their number 1 spot, and it's threatening Moscow. And we have 2 actions, or place a fortress marker at Petrograd. Well, I don't think we have the luxury of placing a fortress marker at Petrograd. It would be really nice, but we don't have that luxury. So we're going to have to attack with 2 actions. We have our armored train, so we're going to use it against the Southern Whites. 4 + 1, 5. They go back to Saritsyn, and that burns up the train for this turn. We have 1 action left, and well, we have also the forgot we have the Baltic Army here, Yudenich, about to march upon Moscow, so we have to attack him. There's no other choice there, so here we go. And that's a 2. That fails, and if he marches in the next turn, we lose. So we have no more actions we can do, so here we go. We flip the card, and that's the end of the game. Tsar's fate decided in Ekaterinburg. Advances by the Baltic. We have advances by Poland, so that brings marker down by 1. By the Allies to their number 1. And even by the Southern Front, so this was a complete nightmare. We would have had 3 actions, but we don't survive the advance by the Baltic Army, Yudenich. So that's the end of the game. Okay, this was a military defeat, and we had 15 cards left, so it's a marginal defeat. So it could have been worse. This game, for the first time since I've been playing it, I had the chance to get a hold on the armored train. And you saw how the armored train is a big plus. It's a big help in trying to push back armies and manage your precious resources. But I think that in order to have a chance to win, you probably have to get at least 1 more of these goodies here in the reorganization table. Of course, there is very little opportunity to roll on this table because only on a roll of a 6 you get any of these bonuses. Although there's some action cards, event cards that give you a bonus. In those instances, I think unless there's something which is critical going on, you should roll. And in this turn, obviously in this game, we saw our political level dwindle. So we never had a chance for a political victory. So we just tried to fend off the armies. And at the end, we weren't able to knock out either the Allies. We had opportunities to knock out the Allies with a withdrawal, or the Southern Russians, but we weren't fortunate enough to do that. And we spent our offensive resources, I think, too early in the game. But it was a very enjoyable game, and that's the magic that this series has, that you are hard-pressed to make tough decisions all the time with some instances of respite. So that's what makes the series so, I guess, so appealing to everybody. Well, thanks for watching.